Polly's over there having a little lie down like a good girl. Hello, everyone. That's better. It's a little bit brighter. Hello. Goodness me, everyone's going travelling. Hello, Kay. What are you doing up in Sydney? Very exciting. Craig and Karen and Joan and Kay won the hellos this afternoon. What time of day is it? I can't still be jet lagged. That's ridiculous. Who else is here? Peter and Karen, hello. It was lovely to see you on the weekend. And Kevin, Emily, great to see you. Hello, Jeff and Sue. How are you doing? Paul and Roz, g'day. Before I forget and before I start on this Chardonnay, you should all have got an email from me. Hello, Fiona. Hello, Sarah. It was lovely to see you and all your family here and friends here on the weekend as well. Great to see you. I sent out an email 2 days ago about mezcal. So hopefully you're all emailing Kevin madly to get your bottle of mezcal to do mezcal tasting in a couple of weeks' time. We have Kumeu River Chardonnay tonight. Here we go. Kumeu River Chardonnay 2023. Peter is in the kitchen cooking up the okonomiyaki, so that's very exciting. And my little live audience is being very good and quiet and drinking their alternate Chardonnay until they're allowed to have some of this. So better get this open. What else was I going to say? Oh, yes, it was lovely to have all of you who were at the lunch on Sunday here last Sunday. It was awesome lunch. And if any of you are kind of thinking about maybe coming to the next one, we've still got a few spots left. So I think if you're thinking maybe not, maybe 16th of May. Is it the 19th of May, Jill? Yes, the 19th of May, Sunday the 19th of May. In a couple of weeks' time, 2 and a bit weeks' time, we've still got a few seats left. So the menu's amazing. The wines are going to be awesome. It's the first look at the 2022 single vineyard Pinots, but that's for another day. But do give us a call if you're thinking about coming along. It would be lovely to see you. Kevin, you've had a few mezcal orders come through. Excellent. That's going to be awesome. Hello, Andrew and Alison. Great to see you. And Craig has confirmed that it needs decanting. So I've got decanter number 4, which was the slightly less fingerprinty one out there at the moment. We use these decanters a lot. So they're never perfectly sparkling, but they do a very good job. I'm going to put this in here because being a 2023, I think it will be quite tight. And I haven't had this vintage yet, but the previous vintage had a bit of funk to it, which the Kumeu River ones usually do. So let me get this in the decanter. There we go. Lovely decanter of Chardonnay. Excellent, Kay. Good. Oh, but also typing separately. That's very organised of you. And I'll put some of that in there. Excellent. That's lots of nice air. I'll pop this over here so that Richard can come and get it when he's ready for some of that. Okay, put my phone over here. It's all very organised. Yes, Craig, you have said that you thought you could smell a bit of sulphur. So it wouldn't be the sulphur in the winemaking. It would be a reductive character, which we'll talk about a little bit. That flinty minerality, absolutely, Kay. Hello, Cotty and John. Lovely to see you. Homemade pasta and pesto. I think the pesto will possibly clash a little bit with the wine, but give it a go. See what you think. Could be fabulous. You're all on your phones. Oh, you crazy Gen Zers, you. That's hilarious. So, yep, that's got that classic. So Kumeu River. Should we talk about this wine in the glass first, and then I'll tell you about Kumeu River? Let's do that. So this wine, for me, has got roast chicken, Fiona. How delicious. Well, my okonomiyaki is not ready yet either, but roast chicken will be beautiful with this. Craig, what's Joan whipped up for you guys tonight? I'll be interested to know what snacky snacks you guys are having. Exactly, Fiona. And I know that at least one household out there is having fish and chips. So another classic Kiwi dish. So this Chardonnay, it's got quite a lot of gold hue to it. It's got a bit more depth of colour to it than the Devil Ben Creek had last week. The Devil Ben Creek was a little bit more lemony in colour, and this has got a lot more reductive character on the nose, and also it's a little bit riper than the Devil Ben Creek was. So there's a bit of tropical fruit going on here as it opens up. Mac and cheese and deep fried ricotta. Yum. Hello, Jackie and Zach and Hannah. Homemade pizzas. Awesome. Shell and Andrew, I'm so pleased to hear that you're whipping up an okonomiyaki storm. Peter is also frying up beautiful morsels as we speak. I've gone for the super simple okonomiyaki. It's missing a few. It doesn't have any. We don't have any mountain yam or tempura crunchy bits, but I think it'll be delicious anyway. We made our own okonomiyaki sauce. I'll talk about that later if I can say it again. It's quite a difficult word to say, even harder to spell. So now I've given that some air by chucking it into the decanter, giving it a good swirl, and some of those there's a little bit too much of that struck match sulfide kind of character to the wine I felt on first opening it, which is why I wanted you to possibly put it in a decanter. If you didn't have a decanter, give it a really good swirl to get some air into it, because that's going to bring up the actual flavour of the wine and not that reductive, slightly flinty, slightly struck match character. That's one of our guests who has her phone not on silent. She's gone out of the room in shame. And now that that's blown off a little bit, a little bit of passion, I reckon, Coddy, as well, there's a bit of passion fruit. So first of all, I'm getting some really lovely lemon, grapefruit, citrus aromatics, but I'm also getting some yellow peach, and I'm getting a little bit of, for me, it's almost like green mango and a little bit of pineapple coming through, and that little bit of passion fruit as well. I think the fruit's coming up. Definitely peaches, Peter and Karen. Yellow peaches more than white peaches here, whereas I see white peaches more often from the Chardonnay that we make here at Moorooduc. So this is one of the decisions that Michael Brakovich has made about this Chardonnay. He's obviously, being where he is, his vineyard is to the north of Auckland. It's right up the top of the North Island of New Zealand. But this fruit comes, I didn't do my research very well, and I'm hoping the back label probably won't tell me anything. It's, okay, so the vineyards are in Kumeu and Hawke's Bay, so there we go. So being called village means that the French or Burgundian tradition means that a village wine is sort of sourced from around the local villages. Craig, is kiwi fruit in New Zealand just fruit? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Craig. I nearly missed that. Thank you, everyone, for making sure that I didn't miss that one. Yep, just fruit. Have some fruit, bro. As it opens up, though, I'm getting more of the lemon grapefruit coming through and less of the tropical fruit that's kind of fading away, and it's just kind of that the pureness of the fruit is coming up more with air, which is really nice. A little bit of spritz, Jackie. I haven't put it in my mouth yet, so let's give that a go. I think there's more to talk about the nose, but I'll come back to that. So that's come out of our wine fridge at 12 degrees, which I think is a really nice temperature for that wine. I wouldn't want it to be much colder because I think I would lose some of the depth of flavour in the wine. So for me, this has got, on the palate, it's a little bit riper, a little bit richer as well than the Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay. And it's sort of on the cusp of being almost more in that slightly more old-fashioned kind of slightly riper Australian Chardonnay flavour profile, but it's got a very different acid line to it than anything that we grew or grow in Chardonnay in Australia. So I think it's really interesting to see how all the components of that wine come together. Being from Kumeu and Hawke's Bay, their cool climate, and all of New Zealand is sort of significantly cooler than most of Australia's wine regions. But being a small, narrow island in a big expanse of cold sea will have an effect as well on the climate. It's all pretty maritime, and the regions that this Chardonnay comes from in New Zealand are some of the warmer regions, so a little bit more sunshine, a little bit more ripening potential, but less sunshine than they have down in central Otago, which is cooler but more sheltered, whereas up in the north, particularly around Kumeu, they're right on the coast. There's a lot of coastal weather that comes in, so it'll be less sunshine and radiation to ripen things, but also slightly warmer, but more crazy weather, if that makes sense. Craig, what are you asking? Does the bottle mention the oak profile? It doesn't, but I did do some research on that, Craig. You'll be pleased to know. The wine is fermented and matured in 40% oak and 60% stainless steel. It doesn't say if they use any new oak, and it doesn't taste like it's got any new oak to me. I think this is all about sort of the oak is about old oak and gaining texture and complexity in the wine rather than oak flavour. There's definitely a saline edge to the acid, Craig, and if anyone's been to that part of New Zealand, up around Kumeu, it's really wild, and they've got this incredible beach with black sand on it that's really squeaky. It feels quite alien as a place to be, and the weather is, as I said, fairly raw, so you can sort of taste that in the wine. But I think also Michael Brakovich is a master of wine. He's one of my Chardonnay heroes in the world, and I'm not the only one who thinks he's a pretty good winemaker, particularly Chardonnay winemaker. He was voted, the Institute of Masters of Wine gets involved in a competition that is through, I think, the Drinks Business. It's one of the English wine magazines, but Michael got voted winemaker's winemaker of the year. So they always put together a list of pretty awesome winemakers, and he got the gong this year, just a couple of months ago at can't remember the name of it. It's a wine show in Germany during the same time as Vintage, so I can never go. Anyway, so I've known Michael since the late 90s, early noughties, when I worked in retail, and we started selling his wine then. He made a Kumeu River Chardonnay, and then he made a reserve wine, which is Mate's Vineyard Chardonnay, and that vineyard was named for his father, Mate. His family, I think, is Polish or Hungarian. My Polish, surely some of you guys out there will be able to tell me where Brakovich is from. Is it Polish, Dad, or Hungarian? Brakovich. Anyway, someone out there, one of you guys will be able to tell me. But he's second generation, and when his family started the vineyard in the late 60s, early 70s, they were growing lots of Merlot and lots of red grapes for fairly cheap, easy drinking, entry-level wine. And he's really turned the business around. He makes a little bit of Pinot Noir, which last time I tasted it was less exciting than the Chardonnay. I've always thought his Chardonnays were the best wine that he made. and he used to make a little bit of Merlot still, but I'm not sure if he still does. The Chardonnay is the wine that he focuses on. The Chardonnay is the wine that gets all the attention internationally in wine magazines and reviews and all those kind of things. It's the wine that he's famous for. And this wine, the Village Chardonnay, is his Devil Ben Creek. It's his entry level. He doesn't grow all the fruit himself. He sources the fruit from a number of different vineyards, but he will have I would imagine that he would have a pretty stringent fruit selection process, and he probably works with the vineyard owners to make sure that he gets the quality of fruit that he wants. And this is a wine that I usually buy by the 6-pack and just have under the house, so that when I feel like a really nice, not too expensive bottle of Chardonnay, I can pull this out and I know it's going to make me happy because it's got all the things that I want to see in Chardonnay. It's as it's opening up in the glass. That the sulfide character's still there, but it's just kind of gone into the background, that little flinty kind of note. As Craig said, there's this beautiful saline edge to the acid. It's like salted or preserved lemon now, which I think is rather awesome. And if you're having something, either, the whitebait fritters, I think, was going to be hard for any of us to get decent whitebait. Also, I'm a little bit conflicted with recommending whitebait because it's baby fish, essentially. So in this day and age when everything's overfished, and even in New Zealand, whitebait's becoming rarer and more expensive. It used to be a very traditional thing to eat in a short season at a certain time of year. Very much part of the Maori diet, but because of tourism and because of too many people wanting to get into it and a lack of respect for the seasons, whitebait is becoming rarer and harder to source. So I put the whitebait fritters in there as a sort of reference, but any of you who are having fish and chips, I think would go brilliantly with this. Any of you having chicken will be fabulous. The okonomiyaki, I think, will be brilliant. Mac and cheese and deep fried ricotta sounds pretty delicious with this wine too. I think that you guys now kind of know what works and what doesn't with these kind of Chardonnays. And it's really interesting looking at it because it's so different from the Devil Ben Creek. It's opening up really differently. It, I think, lacks some of the brightness and drive that the Devil Ben Creek had last week, but the acids, as we said before, is quite flinty, quite minerally, quite salty, and it's quite a different shaped acid. It kind of, for me, it kind of spreads out across the tongue rather than going straight down the middle of the tongue like the Devil Ben Creek did last week. Coddy's saying that actually works well with the pesto and it heightens the fruit. Good, excellent. I'm glad to be proven wrong. Here's Polly. Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul. She said, I don't want to talk to anyone. What have you voted on the Devil Ben Creek here, Craig? Well, I think also one of the problems for us with Devil Ben Creek is that we have failed to find a larger fruit source for our Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay. So we have, I think I said last week, we have 10 bottles of Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay here. So nothing to sell here. There's a bit out there in the world. I spoke to our Queensland distributor and remembered that we gave them a whole allocation of 5 cases of Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay this year. So those will go nowhere. And all of our distributors have taken all of their Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay. So I think the Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay is a pretty special wine. It's not really sustainable as far as a brand is concerned because we just don't have enough fruit coming through. So that's the sort of sad thing. Whereas this Kumeu River Village Chardonnay, you will see, if you Google it, it's everywhere, and everyone is forced to buy Moorooduc Estate. Alison. Hello, Nareem. Hello, Dies. Lovely to see you. It was nice to see you on the weekend too. This is a wine that is out there everywhere. I have no idea how much they make at Kumeu, but I know it will be a lot more than the 100 or so cases that we made of Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay in 2023, because everyone's got it and everyone's selling it, and you'll get some really good bargains on this wine as well. I think the best price that I saw on this was by the dozen at a few places. It's $23.99, so $24 a bottle by the dozen, which is ridiculously cheap for this quality wine. It's outrageous, really. It's got a little bit less definition to it. It's a little bit kind of simpler and more straightforward than the wine that we had last week. But I think it's a nice midweek Chardonnay, and it's got enough complexity and it's got enough drive to it that it makes it interesting. Going down a toasty cheese note. Oh yes, Craig, I agree. It's got a sort of toasted bread, toasted cheese sandwich kind of character to it as well. Absolutely. As I said, it's a bit old-fashioned in its character. I would be very surprised if it hasn't been through a full malolactic fermentation. Would you agree, Dad? It's got that real kind of dairy, cheesy note to it. Dad's raising here. I don't know if the table over there is enjoying this wine as much as I am. There are some faces that are saying that maybe it's yes, no. Do you like it? Do you think it's good? Yeah, no, they like it. Sorry, I was reading the body language wrong. I think it's delicious for the price. But if you do like this wine, I highly recommend getting hold of some of Michael's other Chardonnays. The wine snobs. No, they like it. They like it, Craig. I was selling them short. What's Cotty saying? New Zealand growers facing less or more climate challenges compared to Australia. Different, Cotty. Yeah, I think pass is the answer. We might have to go to New Zealand and ask them. Maybe we should do a little trip to New Zealand. But New Zealand has different issues compared to Australia. A lot of New Zealand wineries are old sheep stations, and the New Zealand wine industry has evolved hugely over the last 20, 30 years. And a lot of the land was until very recently, and possibly even today, still relatively cheap compared to land that we're growing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay on here in Australia. The big issue that New Zealand has is not having a huge domestic market. So they've worked really hard on promoting and selling their wines internationally. Of course, there are people in New Zealand who drink New Zealand wines, but the population's so small that they really need to have an international presence to do that. And the other issue for New Zealand is that New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, particularly Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, has been so incredibly internationally successful that people forget that they grow beautiful Chardonnay and beautiful Pinot Gris and beautiful Pinot Noir and Gewürztraminer and even some very nice Shiraz, Cabernets and Merlots in New Zealand. There's a lot of diversity in New Zealand as far as quality wine production is concerned, but at the moment, they're seen internationally by most people as a bit of a one-trick pony because of the huge success of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. And I think that with that sort of level of success and popularity, there's got to be a stage where people start getting sick of those wines. And I know that we've had this discussion on this forum before, that a lot of people here choose not to drink New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc on a personal level, and I can respect that. But there's a lot of people out there in the world who love New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and who drink it exclusively and drink nothing else, no other wine. So I totally agree, Fiona, that if we could get more people focusing on the beautiful Chardonnays that are coming out of New Zealand, and also some really lovely Pinot Noirs coming out of New Zealand, Then, oh, here comes my okonomiyaki. Oh, Peter, that's beautiful. Thank you. I've got, oh, wow. Hang on. You've got to see this because the bonito flakes are dancing. Can you see that, guys? Whoop. Can you see the bonito flakes doing a little dance, having a little wiggle? That looks pretty good, doesn't it? I'm not quite sure how I'm going to eat it, but I'm going to give it a jolly good go. It smells amazing too. The bonito is dried fish anyway, and it's got a very strong aromatic to it. But they're so thinly cut that it'll be really lovely. They do, don't they? Shell said the bonito flakes make her giggle every time. They're so cute, aren't they? Having a little dance on top, getting ready to be eaten. Okay, going back. So, Cotty, I can't really answer your question, although I would say that probably everywhere in the world is having. Pete, the dyes are coming over. They'll be here in about 50 minutes. Can you make a few more? Hang on, I'm just cutting this because I can't bear not to taste it while it's hot. It looks amazing. So I am reading your questions, and I will answer them in just a moment. But let me taste this because it looks unreal. Here we go. Yum. Oh, that's really good, Pete. It's an amazing flavour bomb, the okonomiyaki. The Kewpie mayonnaise. Shell's saying the Kewpie mayonnaise makes the wine a bit ice creamy or like lemon sorbet, and I totally agree. The okonomiyaki sauce is sweet and savoury and tangy, and it kind of brings out the more savouriness in the wine. The fishiness and the eggs and the cabbage all kind of do. It's just like a big umami bomb, and that's a perfect combination for this wine. So thank you so much, Peter, for cooking those. That's amazing. You deserve a big glass of wine now. Okay, questions, comments. Has Pete got some?
Nearly.
Nearly? Okay, cool. So what are people? New Zealand tour? Yes, Karen. Let's see how we go. I like the idea of a New Zealand tour. We are still talking. Penny's over in Japan at the moment, which is why she's not on the chat tonight. But when she comes back, I'm going to talk to her as well about Sicily. So that's all in the mix. Paul and Roz, I'm surprised you say it's old school given the acid. So this is for me the weird thing. It's not. So in Australia, if you got Chardonnay this ripe, then the acid would have fallen through the floor and it would be big and blousy. But the flavours are old school, but the acid is still there because in New Zealand, because it's cooler, because the ripening period is longer, then the wine holds onto its acid for longer. And it can handle that extra ripening period without losing the acidity, which is why I think it works better here. Sorry, my okonomiyaki has made me very thirsty, and the wine has made me very hungry for okonomiyaki. So I'll try not to just shovel food and wine in my mouth and keep talking to you. But my mouth is watering like absolute crazy now. Anywho, Craig. Struggle with thinking that it's your pleasure to drink their wine. Their cellar doors are not commercial compared to Australia. Oh, Craig's talking about the New Zealanders. They're a lot less sophisticated in their cellar door experience in New Zealand than we are here in Australia at the moment. That's what I mean. It's like they're farmers. It's old farmland. It's been converted to vineyards. And so Peter and Karen will be here in about 15 minutes, Pete. And it makes the experience of going to visit cellar doors in New Zealand really lovely because it's just it's not as flashy as some of the Australian wine regions are these days, but a lot of the better New Zealand wine producers are just they're really pleased that you come to visit them, and they're really happy to show you their wine. They are surprised that you want to drink their wine. And they're a little bit, they're quite humble and kind of, laid back. The rest of the world thinks that Australians are laid back, but the New Zealanders are even more laid back than we are. So that would be fun to go and visit. Alison, I haven't said how my trip was yet. Well, actually, no, I did a little bit last week, but I think I was jet lagged and probably didn't make much sense. So I will tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. Let me get through these last. Salty Food does seem to love this wine. Absolutely, Fiona. And Kay is asking if the vineyards were sheep stations in New Zealand. Does that impart a particular exclusive character? Ha ha. No, I think, though, that places that sheep can survive quite comfortably often have fairly poor soil. So that also works for vineyards, which is, but a lot of New Zealand was sheep farming for a long time, and they've diversified fairly recently, and the wine industry is very exciting these days. Okay, so Paul and Roz, very impressed with your Hawke's Bay winery visits at Christmas. Awesome. Kevin and Emily are headed to Sonoma at the end of May. The tasting there will actually be very different. So Sonoma is much flashier than a lot of Australian wine regions as well. So the Americans are very, very good. I mean, I think for me, visiting the Napa Valley is like visiting Wine Lovers Disneyland. It's just full on crazy. Particularly if you go through Yountville and you have a meal at one of Thomas Keller's restaurants or something. There's fancy hamburger restaurants that do like crazy good burgers that are off the scale. Sonoma's a little bit more laid back than Napa, but it's still pretty high end cha-ching. And that'll be lots of fun, Kevin and Emily. I think you'll have a ball over there. Beautiful coastline along there as well. One of my favourite Sonoma producers is Pei. It's spelled P-E-A-Y, Pei Wines, and they make beautiful wine. They're right up the northern end of Sonoma, away from a lot of the other wineries. And they make beautiful Pinot Noir, amazing Chardonnay. So if you need an appointment there. They don't have a cellar door that's just open to the public, but you can email them and get an appointment. And they're definitely worth visiting. Really good. Okay, now I'm just going to have another mouthful of this okonomiyaki because it's too yummy. Hang on. So we made our okonomiyaki without any meat or fish or anything like that. So the simplest version, it's got the sauce and the Kewpie mayonnaise zigzagged over it, so that gives it all that lovely flavour. The bonito flakes and the spring onions as well give it a bit of life. But it's a pretty simple, lovely thing. So if you feel like having a go at making them, do Google a recipe. It's pretty yummy and it's very good wine food. Craig's saying Sonoma wants $25 a head for a tasting. At Napa it's $50. Well, Craig, I reckon Napa's got even more expensive than that recently. I heard stories of sort of $80 to $100 for tasting at the top Napa wineries. You get to taste maybe a couple of wines, which is a bit tough. So we're a bit spoiled here. People get grumpy if they have to pay more than $10 tasting fee. But I think you kind of you see how these different good highball food too absolutely shell. So I tend not to drink wine in Japan because it's pretty expensive, and it's kind of, when I go to Japan it's fairly rare, and it's kind of nice to have a little break from wine. But whiskey highball is fantastic with this kind of thing. Especially with Japanese whiskey. Yum. What else can I tell you? I can tell you a funny story about my family going to visit Kumeu River. How long ago was that, Richard? It was in 1998. 98. So how long ago is that? I can't do the maths. 26 years ago, we did a family trip to New Zealand. Well, most of the family. Actually, everyone was there. You were there, weren't you, Pete? Yeah, that was a family trip. I was a bit late. Richard grew up in Dunedin from when he was about 3 to when he was about 15. And his family had been involved in building a hut on a remote property on a lake just sort of north of Central Otago. Is that right? North of Central Otago? Around that sort of area anyway. And so we went back and visited the hut. The same family owns the property. They give us access to it if we want to use it. There's no running water or plumbing or electricity or anything like that. So it's pretty basic, pretty gorgeous, right on Lake Diamond, if you know that part of the world, which is a glacier-fed lake. So bathing is pretty cold even in the middle of summer. But we were there I came in a couple of days after the rest of the family, so they had almost a week there, I think, and then I joined them and had a night or two at the hut, and then we hired a couple of cars and we went up the South Island and visited some places along the way, including Ripon Vineyard, which is one of my favourite Central Otago vineyards. No, they're not Central Otago. They are Central Otago vineyards. Ripon is delightful. They make beautiful Pinot Noir. And sorry, Dad? On Lake Wanaka, and it's got one of the best, like the view from Ripon is just stunning. So, Sonia, I know lots of people would love to go to the hut. It's quite difficult to access, and I couldn't take the whole group into the hut, but we could certainly go to Ripon and do a tasting and look out across Lake Wanaka, which would be almost as good and better wine than at the hut. Sonia, you had to book for a tasting in Blenheim in February. That's good. I mean, it sort of means that they're getting a bit more. They're working a bit harder on customer service. I think having to book for a tasting is pretty awesome, because it means that they're expecting you to come rather than just turning up and it being random kind of thing. Anyway, so we're driving up the South Island. We caught up with my cousin who was living at the time just on the in Picton, and we caught the ferry across with our hire cars. Ripon is really special, isn't it, Paul and Roz? So we were doing really well. The 2 cars, and remember, this was back in 1998, and we didn't have mobile phones back then or whatever. So we had this plan on the day before we were due to fly back that we'd drive quite a long drive up to and past Auckland up to Kumeu River, but we'd meet halfway for petrol and lunch and stuff, and to make sure that we were all kind of, on the same plan, whatever. And so we drove. I was driving one of the cars. Dad was driving the other car. We drove and drove, and we stopped at the planned stop-off point. I can't even remember where that was, but we stopped. And I thought Mum and Dad's car was ahead of us, but they weren't there when we got there. So we thought, we must have been super speedy and got past them. So we waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, and they never arrived. And so at this stage, I'm starting to get a little bit worried that maybe they've had a car accident, that something dreadful has happened. And we decided, after waiting, I don't know how long we waited, but it felt like a very long time. It's probably an hour or two. We thought, well, I guess we'd better keep going. And so we kept going, really worried about Mum and Dad. And we'd missed our appointment at Kumeu by that stage. And we were meeting at the hotel, and then we were going to go on to Kumeu after that. So we got to the hotel, and they were all there waiting, having, I don't know, a gin and tonic or something. Where were you? It's like, well, where were you? We were waiting. I think I was a bit angry, possibly, because I'd been very worried about them. I was also annoyed because I'd made the appointment at Kumeu and we were too late to go there. So we rang Michael and said, I'm really sorry, we're not going to make it. These guys flew out the next morning, and for some reason I was there for an extra day. I don't know whether it was just that and Dad's probably saying that's not exactly how the story went, but, you know, it was a long time ago. It's good enough. So we missed our appointment to Kumeu River, but I went the next day. I still had the car, and I went by myself and had a lovely appointment, and was a bit sad that I hadn't got to share it with Mum and Dad. So maybe 28 years later, we should all go to New Zealand and go to Kumeu River and not miss the appointment, and tell Michael that we think he makes beautiful Chardonnay and get to taste a few others. I think that would be a good conclusion to that family trauma that we experienced many years ago as the McIntyres. Peter is recommending a television show that was, I think, on ABC called Under the Vines. Pete, I'm not sure, is New Zealand basically like the show Under the Vines? Possibly. I think it was, I watched half an episode of Under the Vines and found it really annoying, being in the wine industry myself, so I couldn't possibly comment, but possibly. Craig Goodman wants to know, what is my opinion on forcing appointments versus blow-ins at Celador? So this will be slightly controversial, and I think at the moment, Moorooduc Estate Celador is open from 10 till 5, 7 days a week, except for Christmas Day, Good Friday, and we open late on Anzac Day. We sometimes have a couple of other days off around Christmas, but we're open a lot. And sometimes we'll have staff in Celador who don't get a customer all day. Sometimes they'll be completely under the pump and wish that we had 2 staff in Celador. So it's quite tricky running a Celador that's open for people just to come in whenever they feel like it. I think at the moment that is what's expected in Australia, and particularly in a region like the Mornington Peninsula. If you're not open, you don't get the visitation, you don't get as many I can't remember what I was saying because I just read Shell's comment. Shell, you guys you nearly broke up in the before mobile phone times due to a similar trauma. I don't know how anyone did anything, Shell. It was very, very difficult. And now that we have mobile phones, then we don't have any excuses not to stay in contact. Okay, what was I saying? So you were teenagers, so you started angry. Excellent. Well, I was not much more than a teenager, so I probably started pretty angry as well. So anywho, well, now that we're much older and wiser and calmer and nicer and less angry, then and we have mobile phones, it's all good. So Craig, I think that the answer. So Hunter's forced almost completely appointments. I'd love to be appointment only at Moorooduc, but I don't think we're quite ready for that. And I think there is something nice about having a Celador that's open that people can walk in. What I was saying when I got distracted by Shell's very excellent comment was that I think that if you're not open and people can't walk in when they want to, you potentially miss out on sales. But you also open yourself up to the fact that you get some people who come through who are not interested in buying wine at all. They're just there for the entertainment and a bit of a tipple. On balance, for us being open 7 days a week is a really good thing, I think, at the moment. So, but Craig, I aspire to being a winery that doesn't need to be open all the time and that we can make appointment only. But I do think it's a little bit unfriendly. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, maybe. But when I go to Europe, whenever I go visiting wine regions, I always make sure that I let the wineries know ahead of time that I'm coming, unless I really want to travel under the radar and just kind of check out how they treat the general public, which is also interesting. But if I want to have a good appointment, if I want to have a good visit, I always make an appointment. There's a tip from a wine industry pro. But yes, I think forcing completely appointments, and then you go to the American situation where it's maybe $100 to go and visit Opus One and taste 1 or 2 vintages of wine. It's a bit weird. I'm not a civilian, Alison, but anyone can send an email to a winery and say, hey, I'm coming to visit you. I know your cellar door's open. I'm really interested in your blah blah wine. Really looking forward to coming to see you. And they'll do a bit. They'll do Craig. That's not right. They'll do a little tip from Auntie Kate. That's right, Shell. Yeah, a little heads up to a winery saying I'm interested in coming to see you because of will usually get you a slightly better visit than if you just turn up at cellar door. Very insecure work for staff under which model, Cotty? The by appointment only. I think if you're a business that is strong enough to not need to be open for cellar door, you will employ your staff to do other things like deal with all the appointments. Because if you're a very good winery and you're appointment only, then ideally you should be getting a lot of people emailing you to make appointments. And if you're not, then you're probably kidding yourself about how popular you are. And also packing up and sending off orders and doing sales and that kind of thing. The whole point of a cellar door, and some people might be surprised to hear this, but the whole point of a cellar door is to sell more wine. We know that it's entertaining and fun, and you get a better sense of where the grapes are grown and who makes the wine, how the wine's made when you come visit a cellar door. And I think all of that's incredibly valuable. And I think the reason that I do these Drinks with Kate tastings and we do our wine club and we do our wine club lunches and all of those things is to give back to people who love us a bit of love and a bit of extra entertainment, enjoyment, wine drinking, fun, information about what we do, all of those things. But in the long run, if all of this work that we do with cellar door being open and me doing Drinks with Kate, if it's not selling wine, then it doesn't sustain the business. Drinks with Kate is absolutely just group therapy, Craig, but I'm glad to say that you guys buy enough wine for it to be able to continue to be a voluntary service on a Thursday night. It's also a very good excuse for me to get Peter here to cook me something delicious to eat with my wine, and to have a little group of friends around here to drink. Cotty, I think that's really my main bit of main takeaway message is cellar doors love having you guys come in, and it's partly the theatre of coming to do a wine tasting and visit and things like that. It's really nice if you buy a bottle of wine rather than pay a tasting fee. I think is what we would always prefer. And the tasting fee thing, again, is another kettle of fish that we're not going to go into today. But I always feel like we failed if someone comes in and does a tasting and says, oh, we'll just pay the tasting fee and goes away, because it means that they didn't like any of the wines enough to buy a bottle to take home. Often it's a case of people travelling interstate or overseas. But, try the wine, buy the wine, take it home, drink it, all of that sort of stuff. You know how it goes. You guys are on board. You get it. I'm preaching to the converted now. Shell, I'm glad that you use Drinks with Kate as group therapy, because it's absolutely my group therapy every week. And on that note, we're nearly at the 50-minute mark, and I've got to go and eat some more okonomiyaki before my tongue falls out. Sue's leaving. Bye-bye, Sue. Thank you for coming. Next week, we are doing the 2015 Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot Noir. It's the last wine from this box. I will be I should have already organised box 3, but I have not. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, I'm glad that Cellador is lots of fun and informative. It's all part of the fun. So 2015, the Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot Noir. Next week, those of you who are at lunch, last Sunday we had the 2015 Garden Vineyard and Robinson Pinot. If you're thinking about maybe booking in for the May lunch, we will be also revisiting those 2015, possibly the 2015 Robinson and Garden Vineyard Pinots then, because they were so delicious, although I'll be checking to see how many people came to the last one who are coming to the next one. I don't want to double up on those things. We won't be setting our itinerary for Italy next week because I have to wait for Penny to come home, but why don't I work on some dates and see what we can think about? Think about May 2025, 7 to 10 days doing wine and food stuff with me, and then you can add on bits either end to your heart's content. All right, there's a little bit of a teaser for Italy next year. Awesome to see you all. Thanks so much. Bye, Sonia. Bye, Paul and Roz. Bye, Shell and Andrew. Bye, Cotty and John. Goodbye, Peter and Karen. Craig and Karen. You're in Thailand next week, so it'll be beer for you and duck on replay. Oh, well, enjoy. See you later, everyone. It's been awesome as always. Take care, and I'll see you next week, or enjoy Thailand if that's where you're going to be. Cheers, everyone.